This conference will now be recorded.
And we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. It's really great to see so many people on the line. Obviously, there are a lot of you out there taking care of someone you love or care about, and you're looking for ideas or tips and techniques and things to do if you're caring for someone who has memory loss or some form of dementia. Commonwealth Senior Living offers up a lot of speaker series and different opportunities for caregivers to learn and educate themselves on the people that they're taking care of so that they can provide the best possible care at home. And we know if you're on here today, it's because you want to do the best you can possibly do for the person that you're caring for at home. And we certainly know how challenging that is. And we really know how challenging it was all through last year with having to be socially distanced and wearing masks and not being able to necessarily have the people you're caring for understand the reasons for all of that. But my name is Paula Harder, and I'm the Vice President of Resident Programs for Commonwealth Senior Living. I've been with the company for 6 years, and part of resident programs includes our Sweet Memories Memory Care Neighborhood program. I've worked in dementia and with people with dementia since I was 16 years old. I've been a caregiver. I was a caregiver for 8 years. I took care of my father in the last couple of years as he was challenged with vascular dementia as well. So a lot of experience, but as any caregiver knows, every time you think you got it down pat and you know the answer, something new pops up, like COVID-19, and all of a sudden you have to rethink everything. So nobody knows absolutely everything, but I'm happy to be here with you today and share what I know and be able to share as much tools and techniques as we can in this short time together to make it easier for you, hopefully, and give you an opportunity to ask questions, because I'm sure each and every one of you has some kind of an experience that each of us can learn from. So please feel free to ask questions, type them into the comment form if you want to, or you can wait until we open it up and you can ask questions as we go along. But let's get started. So as a caregiver, obviously you face many challenges, and as we said, COVID-19, probably one of the biggest challenges in my 34-year career that I've ever experienced for caregivers, working with caregivers and helping find new ways to reinvent the wheels. As I said, just as we started to figure out how to do this thing, they throw social distancing and staying home and not being able to go out and get outside to help alleviate some of those caregiver stresses. But knowing that it's going to be difficult and that you'll be okay. You're going to be okay no matter how difficult it is. I always make sure to say in every training that I do, you can't do caregiving wrong. You can't take care of somebody with memory loss wrong, because every single person is different. And if you love them and you're caring from them from the heart, everything you do is right. There might just be some other things that you can do or you can add to what you're currently doing that will make it a little easier for you as well. But unless there's abuse involved, you can't do it wrong. So pat yourself on the back for showing up here today and for looking for additional ideas and understanding how to cope with being a caregiver and to take care of someone that you love. Knowing the more you know, the more it lessens those challenges and difficulties. One of the first things that I would tell any caregiver in any field taking care of anyone with any kind of challenges is that you have to set realistic and attainable goals. Sometimes, and especially if you're a perfectionist, and there's a lot of us out there, you want to do it exactly right and you want to do it by the book. And there's a lot of times where the book doesn't work and you kind of got to throw it out. And when it comes to memory loss, every single day is different, and everything that works one day might not work the next day. You have to be able to go with the flow, and you have to absolutely be able to set realistic expectations for yourself, and especially for the person you're caring for. It's challenging sometimes as you're working with somebody with memory loss to not be able to look at them and say, I know they're doing this on purpose. I know they understand what I'm saying and they're just not trying hard enough. But the reality is their mind isn't working the way it used to, and they truly are doing everything they can in the situation as well. So you have to decide what works for you, and you have to set priorities. You have to break things into smaller tasks and work on small ones and be realistic. I always tell people, what used to be a clean house to you doesn't have to look like that anymore. If you manage to get one room in your house vacuumed in a week, that's okay. You got one room vacuumed, you got one room clean. You know, if you get half of the stack of paperwork that's on your table done, pat yourself on the back, you got that done. We tend to beat ourselves up a lot when we're doing caregiving. So go easy on yourself, but the more realistic your expectations are for yourself and the person you're caring for, the easier it will be for you. Be okay accepting that success at 80%. It doesn't have to be 100% complete. And what you'll find if you're caring for someone with memory loss is in any given moment, that person that you love is going to have an amazing moment. And if you're worried about whether a room is vacuumed or you got that whole task done or you got to all the errands you needed to get to that day, you're going to miss it. And when you only get moments of joy with the person you're caring for, you want to stop what you're doing and spend time with them and be with them in that moment. That's one of the most important things you can do for yourself as a caregiver, because when the person you love is having a moment of joy, if you participate in it, it's going to really improve your moment as well. So being sure to focus on clear communication, and communication is probably one of the most challenging things to work on when you're taking care of somebody with memory loss, because obviously their communication is impaired and they're frustrated and they're trying to figure out how to get you to understand what's happening in their mind. And almost all the time, whatever someone with memory loss is doing, if they're pacing or they're moving around or they're trying to leave the house or they're getting upset with you, there's a reason. We just don't always understand the reason. And like I tell our caregivers in our community, think of taking care of someone with memory loss like another country. You've gone into this beautiful, amazing country, but you don't know the language. So our job is to learn the language and try to understand what it is they're trying to communicate with us to make that communication a lot easier. But for them to be able to understand us is also challenging. So we have to make sure that we're clear and concise. And keep in mind, fewer words, the better. If you can communicate something with the least amount of words, you're going to be able to have much more clear communication with them. Adding additional words or trying to describe something over and over again tends to confuse the message in their mind. If you think about the brain with memory loss, what's happening is with the communication piece, every single thing that's happening in their environment is communication. So a light turning on is a message coming into the brain, and you speaking to them is a message coming into the brain. If you touch them on the hand, if you ask them to sit down, if the water turns on or the TV is on, or there's something happening outside, every single bit of that is information and communication coming into the brain, and the brain is trying to interpret it and listen to it all at the same time. And when a brain has dementia and memory loss, it cannot focus on every single piece of information that's coming in. So they might be hearing the dog barking outside while you're asking them an important question. They might even nod their head like they heard you, but they actually didn't hear you. They heard the dog barking outside. So we need to make sure we reduce extraneous noise, distractions. If you're trying to communicate with the person that you're caring for, turn the TV off, turn the radio off. And when I say turn it off, I mean turn it all the way off, because even the movement on the television or the flashing colored lights in the background are distractions, and it's information that the brain is competing with to try to hear what you're trying to say to them. So make sure you remove as many distractions as possible in the background as you communicate with the person that you're caring for. Try to avoid using pronouns, he, she, it, pick that up, sit down there. You want to be really specific. Pick up the cup, please go sit by Susan. You want to say names and say things that are going to be much more familiar. Vague words turn into vague information that they can't necessarily understand. And one of the words, and we tell this is one of the 10 commandments of memory care, is eliminate the word no from your vocabulary. People with memory loss don't understand the word no, and the majority of the time, just like any of the rest of us would, they rebel against that word. It's frustrating to them because a lot of times they're asking to do something that you know full well they can't do. But if we tell them no, it frustrates them even further. So there are ways to adapt what you're saying to them so that you can avoid using the word no, but keeping in mind that that is likely going to cause frustration rather than get them to do what it is that you want them to do. Remember that every single thing that your caregiver does, or that the person you're caring for does, has a meaning. It has a purpose. It isn't just random. It isn't just dementia. And part of the challenge of changing and fixing the way we care for people is that if in our mind we think dementia is causing everything, we can't fix it. There's no solution for it. But the fact is, when someone you're caring for reaches out and squeezes your hand very tightly, there's a reason for it. In their mind, they're trying to communicate something to you. Usually what they're trying to communicate is an unmet need, such as needing to use the restroom, wanting to go lie down, being cold, being hot, being hungry, being thirsty. So if someone you're caring for is doing things that you perceive as being unusual, try offering those things first. Try eliminating the things that might just be basic necessary needs, because a lot of times that's what it is. It's something they're trying to communicate with you. Almost 80% of the time, it is a fear. Are the residents that we care for in memory care, when they're experiencing behaviors and they're showing us different types of expressions and things we don't understand, most of the time it's from frustration and fear and the confusion of what's happening around them. So again, if you can reduce the noise and the things that are happening around them, calm the situation down, calm the environment down, and then give their mind a chance to relax and rest a bit, and then offer communication in that very clear, concise, careful communication, you might be able to get at what it is that they are trying to get from you. But all behavior has meaning. It isn't just because of a disease. The disease has caused them to not be able to make rational, logical decisions about what they're doing. But what they're doing has a purpose, and it is to communicate something to you. So if you can look at it that way, a lot of times it makes it a little bit more interesting for our caregivers to observe people as they're experiencing a behavior, to try to figure out what the behavior is, rather than throw up their hands and say, well, there's just nothing I can do about it because they have dementia, and there's nothing we can do about it. Because you absolutely can solve behaviors if you take the time to observe and understand what it is they're trying to communicate with you. Slow down, try seeing the world from their eyes. What are they doing that is in your world that doesn't quite make sense to you, but might from their world? An example is when I talk to the caregivers in our communities, they think that what our residents are doing is unusual, but when you ask them if they were doing that in their home, if something in their home happened, for example, if a stranger walked into your home tonight and came up to you sitting on the couch and put out a hand and said, come with me, I'm going to take you to the bathroom, how would you respond? Likely, and the response usually from our caregivers is, I'd call the police, I'd yell, I'd scream, I'd kick, I'd hit, I'd punch. Then I turn that around into, so when you walk into a resident's room without knocking, or if you walk into the person who you love and you walk into their room without knocking and they don't recognize you and they want to hit you or they want to get away from you, that is a normal reaction that any of us would have, but we don't necessarily understand they're having the same type of reaction that we would have. So if you put yourself in their shoes, understand what they're seeing in their environment from their perspective, it really helps with trying to solve the communication challenge and what the behavior is actually related to. With memory loss, one of the best things you can either learn to do or do well at is be flexible, because people with memory loss are going to do things differently every single day. From hour to hour, they're going to do things differently. And our schedules are pretty much going to go out the window. You have to really be good at being flexible, because what you have planned for that day might not be what your loved one has planned for that day. That day, they might be having a bad day, or they might be having a great day and they're just not ready to go run errands or do the things that you have on your list. And if to avoid some of those intrusive behaviors or those upsetting behaviors, we have to be okay with being flexible and be really okay with our schedules changing and things going differently than we anticipated. Dementia is a progressive disease. It does get worse over time. But again, there are so many beautiful moments in it as well. And there are great opportunities to capitalize on those great moments that they're having, and to try to avoid some of those stressful moments by improving our communication and our flexibility. Your loved one's symptoms, they're going to change over time. They're going to become more challenging, and over time, they're going to become less challenging as well. One of the things we talk about with caregivers in the communities is right now it's challenging, but eventually that's going to change too. It will get easier over time, even though there's some really challenging times in between. So keep heart, it does get better over time, but it comes with the progression of the disease, which can feel like it's also getting worse at the same time. If your strategies and techniques aren't working, don't continue to use them. I watch families often, they try to get mom to engage in photographs or talking about family members, and they can't quite understand why the pictures don't make mom happy anymore. A lot of times when we use pictures and reminiscing and, hey mom, you remember your granddaughter Kathy, right? Those kinds of things actually exacerbate challenges and make individuals feel more stressed because they know they should and they're hearing you tell them they should, but when they don't recognize the person in the picture, it's embarrassing for them and it makes them uncomfortable not being able to come up with that name. So sometimes when pictures start to become more agitating than not, it's a good time to set the photo albums aside and try a different technique, because there are a lot of different ways to engage with your loved one that don't necessarily involve all of the techniques that you might have been using for the last year or so. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to mention it again because it bears repeating. Enjoy the good times. With memory loss, sometimes we only get moments, and sometimes those big 3-day long family celebrations become 10 or 15 minutes. And to really focus on yourself as a caregiver, to really be able to recharge and energize, you need those happy moments too. You need to be able to be with that family member and see them enjoying their life and enjoying what's happening in that moment. So take the time to enjoy the moments. Take the time to watch what they're doing and laugh with them, even if you don't understand what they're laughing at, and sometimes that will be the case. You won't know what they're laughing at. You won't know what they're excited about, but just go with it. You got to get really good when you're caring for somebody with memory loss at just saying, really? Tell me more about that, even if you have no idea what they just said. But it makes them feel heard. It makes them feel important because they get to talk to you, and it really alleviates some of that stress for them because now you understood them. And it doesn't matter if you did or not. It really doesn't. For them, it matters a whole lot. Continue to socialize, stay active, get out and involved, go to educational activities. If you're taking care of somebody at home and you've been isolated as well, that's 2 people that are isolated, not just one. It's really important for a caregiver to take care of themselves first. You cannot continue to care for someone over a long period of time if you don't go to your doctor's appointments, if you don't get out and walk and get some sunshine and go see friends. And sometimes that requires us to get really outside of our comfort zone and ask for the help that we don't normally ask for. But really, really remember to appreciate those moments of joy. Christmas doesn't have to be the 3-day event it used to be. We all miss it. We all know that what it used to be like. But the person that has memory loss, when they're having a moment of joy, that's the moment to be with them. And they will have just as much fun in 15 minutes of Christmas activity or holiday activity or birthday activity as they would in a 3-day celebration. And sometimes we have to stop and think about who is the celebration for. Because if they're not enjoying a long, tiring 2-day event, that's going to actually affect your ability to enjoy that activity as well. And sometimes all we need to do is include them in about 15 minutes of it, and they're good. They enjoy it and they love it. So keeping those kinds of things in mind. Who is the celebration for? What is the agenda? And less is more when it comes to somebody with memory loss. Less is always more. With that said, reminiscing about the past is a highly effective tool because with memory loss, and particularly with Alzheimer's disease, memories from the past, the longer ago they were, the more ingrained they are in the brain, the easier they are for people to recall. And so you will see someone with Alzheimer's or related dementias talking about something with really great detail from 20, 30 years ago, and yet they can't remember that they saw you yesterday. And that's because what happened yesterday didn't get through the short-term memory storage and didn't get into long-term storage. But those other memories are there. So they will remember their husband from a long time ago, or they will remember when their child was really small, and they will remember something amazing that happened at work with really, really intricate detail. And those are the moments to jump in and ask questions and keep drawing it out of them, because people with memory loss love to be able to talk fluently about something that happened to them. And that is one of those moments that you can really capture the moment with them. Watch the family videos, look at the photographs, review the travel from the past. Just watch for signs that it's becoming agitating, and that's when you try something different. If it's becoming agitating, then you want to set that aside. But pictures and video, especially things from the past. One thing to be really careful about with photographs, if you're showing pictures of grandchildren who are more recent additions to the family, they are likely not going to always remember those names or those faces. But if you show them pictures of you as a child, or you show them pictures of family members who are much younger, they may not even recognize their spouse who's sitting right next to them, because they don't recognize that person at 60. They recognize them at 25. So when you show them a picture of them, their wedding picture, that they will remember, but they may not necessarily remember them sitting right next to them. So a big piece is just observing for how they're responding to it. If they start to show signs of agitation, then you'll want to back off from that. And allow your loved one to share the history that they remember. One thing that usually works for me is if someone is saying, I miss my mom, or I miss my dad, or I want to see my dad, or I'm going to see my mom, I want to see my mom, and mom and dad have passed away already. Rather than telling them that, rather than trying to orient them to the reality of the situation, it's much better to say things like, you seem to be thinking about your mom a lot today. Tell me about that. Tell me about your mom. What did you love about her? That lets them talk about their mom and talk about what they're missing in their mom without having to necessarily remember all the details. So those kinds of questions, the kind of question that elicits a good response are the ones where they don't necessarily have to have the perfect memory. If you try to ask them, what did you have for breakfast? That will frustrate them. But if you say, tell me about your mom, that one they will most likely respond well to. As a caregiver, as we started to say before, you have to make time for yourself. You have to find time to get out of the house. You have to, even if you're in the same house, find a few minutes away while they're napping. Take time to sit out on the deck with a glass of wine or your favorite beverage and just take a few minutes to recharge. If you don't let your mind rest, if you don't let your body rest, you will too become sick. And then there will be two people that need caregivers in the home. So you want to really, really focus on how do you find a few minutes a day for yourself. Set aside time, 30 minutes a day, even if it's only 10, even if it's just the walk to the mailbox by yourself or a walk with the dog around the block. It all helps and it all adds up. Get out and exercise, visit with a friend, reconnect with those people that you might not have been able to talk to last year during the COVID isolation. And retreat to your favorite place. Sometimes just going into your own room and closing the door for a few seconds so that you can breathe is a great way to recharge and re-energize. If you're comfortable with it, mindfulness, meditation. Sometimes meditation is nothing more than simply being quiet and letting your brain be quiet. So being able to do that will make a huge difference. And it's really surprising when you talk to caregivers, you'll find that sometimes you don't even realize that you haven't been paying attention to yourself for a really long time until you actually take that 10 minutes and go, whew, I didn't know how long it had been since I had gone somewhere by myself. I didn't know how long it had been since I've actually, been able to do something that I enjoyed without worrying about the caregiver experience. When you do that, you will definitely recharge your batteries and feel so much better about the whole situation. Make sure that you're attending to your healthcare needs. We were doing a dementia training at one point, and I remember a woman coming in and she wouldn't talk to me without having her hand up over her mouth. I didn't ask her, but she offered that she had not taken care of her teeth in 15 years because she had been caring for her mother at home and she hadn't been to a dentist herself. Her mom had been to the dentist regularly, but she herself had not taken herself to the dentist, and she was in the process of having lots of dental work done to correct that. You have to take care of yourself. You have to go to your doctor's appointments. You don't want your health to decline. And as you can see the statistic on the screen, after about a year of caregiving, 75% of caregivers report less than excellent health, simply because we didn't take the time to pay attention to ourselves and give ourselves the care that we needed as well. Make sure you go to your physician, make sure you go to the dentist, make sure you get out and walk, eat proper meals, find time to exercise, and to make sure that you see your own physician. One of the best things that you can do for yourself as a caregiver is simply become educated. Go to things like this. Reach out to individuals who have taken care of someone with memory loss. Go and tour a community. Commonwealth Senior Living, we're always happy to have anyone come and visit, even if it's just to educate yourself. Come in and tour a community and talk to our specialists in the community. All of our communities have certified dementia practitioners, and we are more than happy to answer questions and talk to you and help in any way we can. In all of our communities, we also offer support groups, which are opportunities for anyone. And you don't have to have someone living in our community to come to one of our support groups, but you can come and talk to family members who have made that decision and family members who haven't. And just talking to somebody else who has done it, who understands, there is a lot of healing in sitting next to someone who says, me too, me too. And there are so many Me Too's out there. And when you can get into a support group, or you can just have somebody that you can talk to on the phone or call up with an emergency or a question, it will really alleviate the stress of caregiving. You know, you'll know what to expect. You'll understand that a lot of the things that people with dementia do are very, very normal. They're all, so many things that they do are so normal with dementia, and it becomes hard for us to comprehend that part. Because we just see a disease. But when we look past that, everything they're doing makes sense. So much of what they're doing just simply makes sense. And making sure that you take care of yourself, absolutely the most important thing you will ever do as a caregiver. This is one of the hardest things I find for caregivers to do, and I'm sure you can all relate when I give the example of, you know, how many people have said, hey, if you ever need help, let me know, and have you ever contacted those people? So I tell people in the caregiving classes all the time, when people say they want to help, even if you don't know what they can do right in that moment, say, absolutely, I accept, I'll let you know. Write their name down, every single person, keep them on a list in your kitchen. And every time there's a task that you could really use some help with, call them. They want you to call them. They just don't know what to offer necessarily. So when they offer, put it on a list and keep it, and make sure that you use it. And I know that's the hardest part, because we all think people say that sometimes just to make us feel better, but really if someone's offered, they're willing to help. So make a list and have it in your kitchen and keep it there. And when someone offers, accept it. Use the list and tell them exactly what you need. And it might be as simple as running to the grocery store and getting you some groceries. And it might be as simple as just coming and sitting with your loved one for 20 minutes so you can walk around the block. You might not think that that's an important thing right now to have on a list, but when the time comes, it's valuable. It's invaluable to have on a list. Talk to someone about your feelings. Again, being a part of a support group is really, really helpful. But you do what works for you. Not everybody likes the support group environment, and some people prefer to just talk to friends. Some people prefer to talk to their primary physician or a memory care expert. So by all means, do what feels right for you, but learn what you can and talk to somebody about it so that you're not by yourself with your feelings and your emotions. If you're caring for a parent, one of the most challenging parts about caring for a parent is the loss of the relationship, where you now feel like the parent and the person that you turned to for advice doesn't feel like they're there anymore. But the truth is, the parent is still there. The parent relationship is still there. And I've watched families do some of the most beautiful things I've ever heard of to bring that family relationship back and to give mom the opportunity to be your advice. You know, they might not be able to answer you in a very clear response, but it's okay to go to mom and say, you know, mom, I'm having a really hard day. You know, I just need a hug. Or mom, you know, how would you handle this? And share with them and let them talk to you. One family, they brought the shirt of a woman's husband, and he had passed away for a while, and she was missing him, but she had all of his shirts still in the closet. And so the family went and got the shirt and took it out and laid it on the couch, and she sat next to it, and they wrapped the arms of the shirt around her so she could smell the shirt. And the family was rejuvenated watching her smile and watching her react to that. And there was one of those moments of joy that the whole family got to participate in. So loss of the relationship, feeling loss of the relationship tends to be one of the harder things for caregivers to deal with. So find ways to bring that relationship back. It's not gone. It just looks different. There are a lot of resources out there. If you don't have a great support group, or you're not totally connected with a lot of people that can help in different ways, research your area. Rural areas tend to be a little bit more challenging, but they're still out there, and you can contact any of our communities too as well. We're more than happy to help look for resources in your area, but there's home meal deliveries, there's home health and homemaker services. Someone can come in and clean for you, or if your loved one is still living alone and you're going over to care for them, you can find respite places that will help you do those things. Adult daycare, respite stays. If you need to take a vacation, which you absolutely should, you can find places that will do respite for extended stays, where you can take your loved one so they can be cared for while you can go carefree on a vacation. And you absolutely should continue to take vacations. And again, find a caregiver support group. They're very, very helpful. Some of the places that you can contact or you can look up or research on Google or Amazon, anywhere, anytime you need to. The National Family Caregivers Association is a great resource. The Family Caregivers Alliance Elder Care Network, National Alliance for Caregiving, Area Agency on Aging, the Alzheimer's Association, and absolutely Commonwealth Senior Living. We're more than happy to help answer questions. You can call. You can, again, ask to speak to a caregiver, to a certified dementia practitioner, or you can simply come into a community and ask questions. We're more than happy to help in any way that we can. All right, I am gonna unmute everyone. So it might get a little loud and I might have to, we'll see how this goes, but I'm going to unmute you so that you can ask questions at this point if you would like to. All right, I have unmuted everyone. I think people are still muted a little bit here, but you could unmute yourselves as well. Are there any questions?
So Paula, I just wanted to let you know, I've been watching the chat and there hasn't been anything coming up, but we talk about this stuff all the time, but man, there were some moments of what you were saying that I was getting really choked up. I mean, those are great reminders. They're still our parents, even if they may not say the same things they used to. Great reminder.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope everybody got something out of this. We will be sending out this recording tomorrow. I think all of you have my email address. I'm Erica. I'm the one that emailed you the link for this. Okay, Lynn, got your message. So this was not what you were expecting. I apologize if that's the case. Hopefully you got something helpful out of it. Even if you're not caring for someone with dementia, the physical and emotional strain of caring for someone with physical needs is still a lot of work and definitely challenging. And hopefully you found some of this to be useful.
Absolutely. And if you're trying to ask a question or wanted to ask a question out loud, if you click on the red microphone next to your name, you should be able to unmute yourself. For some reason, when I try to unmute everybody, it's not unmuting. But if you unmute yourself, you can certainly ask questions. And if not, you can email them to Erica too, or if you think of something after the fact, certainly reach out to us and we're happy to answer questions anytime.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
My situation is a little bit different than what was going over in the presentation, but I've been caregiving for my mother, for a little while now. She has kidney disease and she's had to go into a rehab center. Do you have any tips as far as on setting realistic expectations with a caregiver? I mean, with a family member that wants more and more and more of your time, and you got to work, you got to do these other things, too. So I was just wondering if you have any on that.
Does she? So you're saying kidney failure? Does she have dementia or memory loss symptoms?
She does not have dementia. That's why I was saying this is a little bit different than what the presentation, was going over. But she's someone that, I've been caring for until she's had to go into the rehab center. So she's dealing with a different, I'm dealing with a different situation.
Certainly.
Just didn't know if you had any tips, that's all.
Absolutely. So when there isn't memory loss present or forms of dementia, setting calm, realistic expectations with her is still acceptable, and you can even be more direct. And you can, just like you and I never compare older adults to children, but when you think about, you have to set boundaries with teenagers. And I had 3 teenagers in the house all at one time. You still have to set boundaries. You still have to explain your boundaries and continually remind them. And sometimes it might be as simple as writing it out. Here are the things that I need from you to be your caregiver, and here are the things I can do for you. And then talk about those things. She might say, well, this one's not acceptable, or this is not acceptable, and you can explain yourself there. But if you have them in writing and you write them down and you talk about them together, then when she push outside of that boundary, you can bring that agreement back out together and talk about it and say, Mom, this is what we talked about. That I need this time to be able to take care of this task. And when I come back, we will do these things that you need. But for right now, I need my time to be able to be a caregiver for you. And it's okay to be that direct. It's challenging to be that direct with somebody with memory loss because they don't understand that logic.
Right.
But somebody who doesn't have dementia, they do. And sometimes it just takes you calmly and lovingly setting that boundary and then sticking to it.
You know, I've done several times, you know, something like that. And when I've told her, I said, no, I can't talk to you from this time to this time because I have a task I need to have done at work, you know, by a deadline. And sometimes she'll say, well, okay, fine, if you don't have time for me, you know. And of course, that's not, you know, what it is, but at all. But anyway, you know, so it's been a little bit challenging sometimes with the boundaries. And then you feel guilty, you know, sometimes with be there, you know, right when they need you to. So.
And that's the hard part, and that does tie into things that we talk about. And we didn't get into the guilt part whole lot in this presentation, but we do talk about caregiver guilt in other presentations. Yes, well, here's the thing with parents. They're pretty good sometimes at putting the guilt on intentionally so that you will do the things that they want you to do, which is why you have to be okay and understand that you're not doing anything wrong, and that you have to find a way to let go of that guilt because you're not doing anything wrong by setting those boundaries, even if she wants to kind of push the guilt a little bit. But that's going to be on your side. That's the part you have to be able to do. Let it, you know, sorry about that. My Alexa is not muted. But you have to be able to decide what you're okay with, what you're not, and make that decision, and then be okay with it. And give yourself some credit and give yourself a break.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's see. Lynn Hagan says, same Wendy, stay strong.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that. I think I needed to hear that today.
There you go. So you got somebody else that, you know, that's the beauty of being able to talk to other people. And, you know, we appreciate you, you know, asking the qualifying question because it might not be what was in this presentation, but there are people on here that still totally relate with that and can offer suggestions.
Thanks, guys.
I think it's really helpful, to Paula's point, to have somebody else who's going through a similar situation. So even, for example, if you and Lynn would like to connect, if you both email me, I can share your email addresses with each other if that would be beneficial. Just let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely.
I'll send you the email.
Anybody else?
Well, thank you all for joining. Hopefully this was helpful, and you know, the door's always open. Call us, email us, we're here for you. You know, everything that we do is focused on improving the lives of seniors, their families, and each other. So let us know how we can do that for your family.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you being here, and had a great time talking to y'all. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend.
Thank you, ladies.